Hi everyone, welcome. We'll get started in just a second. Okay, great. Thanks everyone. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Emily Castle, and I'm a member of the Certiport marketing team. We're so happy to have you join us for our 6th Certified Academy Design webinar. Please feel free to drop into the chat and let us know where you're joining from and what courses you teach. This session is being recorded, so you will receive a link to the full recording via email after the presentation. All our attendees are currently muted, so we have set aside time at the end of our presentation for Q&A. Feel free to send questions through the Q&A or the chat as they come up. This session is being sponsored by the Autodesk Certified User Certification Program. The Autodesk Certified User Certification is an industry-recognized credential that can effectively start students' careers as designers, engineers, and makers. It enhances students' higher ed applications and resumes by providing the evidence of competency and proficiency. Help your students design and make the world a better world by starting with Autodesk certification. We'll be diving into the details of the Autodesk Fusion 360 program and how you can start teaching and leveraging Fusion 360 in your classroom. I'm so excited that we have an incredible presenter back with us today. Craig Hughes is an engineering and technology education teacher teaching Project Lead the Way, or PLTW, engineering courses at Batesville High School in Batesville, Indiana. He has been teaching at BHS for 13 years and has been working with PLTW for 9 years as a master teacher, training teachers to teach their introduction to engineering design and civil engineering and architecture courses. In both of those courses, Craig uses Autodesk products such as Inventor, Fusion 360, AutoCAD, and Revit to create, prototype, and document design solutions. He's an Autodesk certified user for Fusion 360, Inventor, AutoCAD, and Revit. Craig is an alumnus of Purdue University and Ball State University, which has led him to his passion for teaching both in the classroom and on his YouTube channel, where he provides tutorials and help for PLTW students and teachers. He enjoys learning new things and building his skills to be a better educator. Without further ado, I'll pass things to Craig to get started.
Thanks, Emily. So I need to, all those things they go through and tell you about writing a bio, I need to maybe shorten that a little. All righty, so good afternoon, everyone. This is just kind of a little bit of a chance for me to kind of talk a little bit about, maybe how and I think the why to incorporate Fusion 360 into your curriculum. And so that was some things that I kind of try as far as implementation strategies and projects and just a lot of different things that kind of go on in the classroom. So big thing that I go through and always kind of talk about is why Fusion 360 as we kind of continue on in our program here at Batesville High School. So we're looking at integrated, we got CAD, CAM, computer-aided manufacturing, and computer-aided engineering all in one software. So that's one of the big reasons why. Another reason is being part of Project Lead the Way's program and having a PLTW program at our school. It has been, Fusion has kind of become the choice software for our Intro to Engineering Design course. And so kind of that's been a big push. We used to use Autodesk Inventor. And so that's why we kind of went and moved and pushed into those kind of areas and everything like that. So we do, one also benefit is the compatibility with both Windows and Mac operating systems. So for us at Batesville High School, all of our students are one-to-one with MacBook Air computers. So that was one of the things that we were able, to me, I think was what drew some interest to it is that we could actually install that software onto the student laptops and then go through and they could have it to do some work at home, or if they had been absent, they could catch up on work and they didn't have to always be in our classroom. Previously, we have a dedicated desktop computers in my classroom, and they would have to come in during like our student resource time, kind of like a study hall kind of scenario, to come in and do a lot of that work and try to make that up, which can be a little time consuming. And usually when they miss, they also miss other classes. So sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge to try to get them to find time to come in those different cases. So as we go along. Again, there's Chromebooks. There is the browser version. So there is a for Fusion as well. So it can be at times, depending, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but the browser version can be an option just depending upon, in some cases I have heard there may be some good or, maybe not so good situations with that web app. But again, I think it comes down to, depends on where you're at, what kind of IT department setup you have, bandwidth, all that kind of thing that kind of goes into whether or not that really kind of works for some people or doesn't. So I've had people say it works great. I've had some others that have some issues. Usually it's some things maybe like filters or things like that at their school that can go through and cause a little bit of problems. But again, that's always an option there. One of the reasons why Project Lead the Way and why we also look to kind of to change to Fusion is that we actually got to reduce the amount of, reduce for the cost of the computers required to run our software. Because of being able to have the downgraded kind of specifications, especially compared to Autodesk Inventor, we're not having to go through and update computer labs as often. And also, in fact, my colleague, he teaches all, the only Project Lead the Way course he teaches involves Fusion 360. And we're actually not even going to update his lab. We're just going to continue to use the student laptops to be able to do that. So there's a lot of benefits. For me, I still teach Revit, so I still need a dedicated computer lab, but it does make some conversations a little bit nicer with your principal when you can go through and say, yeah, we don't really need to go through and have as much going on. But built-in collaboration tools are also a benefit as well. So you can go through and use something called Fusion Team and have some collaboration with it amongst students, do some group work and be able to do some. So that's a little bit with Fusion and kind of, just some of the main bullet points that I think why, of a selling point of why that we would want to go through and kind of look at that. Again, Emily kind of introduced a little bit about my program and everything. So at Batesville High School, our implementation, we have a 4-year PLTW engineering program. So a student could take this all the way from freshman year all the way to having it as senior as well. And then we have Introduction Engineering Design, or IED. So we get a lot of alphabet soup kind of going on within our PLTW program. We use a lot of the acronyms and everything just to kind of shorten a few things. So Principles of Engineering, we do a Civil Engineering and Architecture, which is where we use Autodesk Revit. And I've also recently worked in AutoCAD as well, just to, I don't do a lot of teaching with AutoCAD, but we use it more as a utility to do things like laser cutting for architectural models and things like that. So I found a way to kind of implement it. We have been using engineering design and development as our capstone course. Next year, we're actually going to be switching that out and going to computer integrated manufacturing, or SIM. And that course will be for me brand new next year to teach. And I'm pretty excited to be able to use Fusion to also do some of the computer aided manufacturing part of being able to set up files to create for using a CNC mill or some of the other prototypes, designs, and everything like that that the students are going to come. We are a Certiport authorized testing center. And so we have been offering, actually today, we just had our kind of one of our final rounds of Autodesk certified user exams. So we offer Fusion 360, Inventor, and Revit. I did have a couple of students who we actually have a partnership with our community college, and they've actually taken a course over there to learn AutoCAD. And so I did also allow them to take AutoCAD as an option for their certifications and everything like that. So we've been, luckily so far, I've been very happy to go through. I've got 2 that still need to take their final final exam as far as the certification exam, their final attempt. But all the other ones out of about 22 students are going to become certified in at least one, if not two, of these programs that we've listed. So pretty happy with all the results and everything that's been able to be done with that. So as far as, again, a little bit with implementation and curriculum, we use the PLTW curriculum quite a bit, but there are some things that I do deviate at times from PLTW curriculum and just go through and kind of use it and kind of hopefully, enhance some things, because PLTW curriculum, as great as it does go through and cover a lot of the, like, again, certification, as we were just talking about that. It covers a lot of those certification objectives, but it also goes through and has some things that you might have to supplement. So there's some ways that I can go through and add some items in. So in our 9th grade course, we start with design process. We do a lot with building with sketching, visualization, and modeling skills. So my recommendation and how I always scaffold this is we always start with objects that have simple geometry. So the images there on the right side, like construction blocks, you can buy those on, to me, I always like to start out with those because in my corporation, this course is the first experience any of my students have to an engineering course. So some other schools around may have a middle school project lead the way program. We do not. So high school is their first exposure. So sometimes I have to go through and start with some simple things to get their skill sets built as we continue on through the program. But I also use a lot of instructional videos. Good thing is about Fusion 360 is that there's plenty of resources out there, and I'm going to share some of those later on. But how to teach commands, usage, workflow, and as the year progresses, I start to go through and try to very heavy with videos at the beginning, but then I start to wean them off a little bit, and then that way at the end, it's more about can they actually do and do they know what they're doing. So, try to also, again, I like to go through and try to use items that hold and manipulate, build spatial visualization skills. And so that's the thing about this, about being able to use this is that, we can do a lot of things where kids can get to make something that's tangible. And I always say, and you'll see in a lot of my examples, I make a lot of items that I try to cater to student interest. There's a lot of, not to go through and knock on any textbooks or anything like that, because I'm one that I enjoy quite a bit, going through textbooks and doing a lot of the exercises that are in there. But there are some things that students just, they don't exactly get very excited by modeling a bracket, so to speak. And so that's where us as teachers, I think, is really good, is we can come in with some things that we know students, we know what they enjoy, and we can try to, again, try to get them excited and interested in using this software and to apply it to some of the, either STEM content that we're teaching or engineering content or even with design. So for me, as soon as we introduce Fusion 360, the 9th grade course is really where we build it, as far as, this is a lot of it. And then as we go through the rest of the courses, we don't really focus so much on it's like that's one of the focuses of the course, as much as we're just building on previous skill sets. So just a little bit just to go through and give you an idea of how we have this structure. I give a lot of suggestions. So if you happen to be, new into, Fusion 360, or you're looking to get in, just start to implement this, I think one of the things is pick things that interest students. For me, it's always, I always think about, food is something that always interests them, sports, and then also things from like movies and television, and just things that would go through and be able to, cater to their interests. So I think also, if you can, depending upon certain scenarios, you can pick activities and projects students can make. What I've found is that some of the best projects that we have are things where, not is it just using the software, but can we use the software to help them create something? So that's where a lot of their interest and motivation starts to pick up, when they can go through and build some things or try to put some things together and have some items to take home. Think about your progression of skills needed for projects. As you go through and start to look at that, again, start to think about the start of your year. I think starting with kind of basic kind of items and then kind of progressing into more complicated things. If you're new to it, the other good thing is too, is that kind of helps with, you kind of learn as the kids learn. And so a couple of the other things I'll mention here kind of relate to that, what I said. Utilize recorded videos to help teach skills and concepts. Videos work really well. Students can pause it, they can rewind, they can go through and be able to, really cater to kind of the pace that they need to be at or what they need to help learn it. A lot of times, teachers, when I train teachers in the summer, they say, do you go through this and have all the kids follow along? I actually use a lot of the recorded video, a lot of videos that I've recorded and have my students go through it. And then when they run in, the ones that run into issues, I'm just kind of going through and troubleshooting those issues as they go along, kind of putting out the fires, so to speak. So don't feel like you have to be an expert. I think that's the other thing too, is that, especially a lot of the teachers I train, is that they feel like that they need to know everything about Fusion 360. I don't know everything about Fusion 360. So there's a lot of times where it's like, sometimes I have to go through and research and figure some things out, or, a lot of times just, ask somebody else. And so I've got a pretty good network of people and guys that I know and that I can go out to and say, hey, I'm having this issue. How can I overcome that? And so also don't be afraid to let students show you things they learn. The thing that a lot of interesting scenarios is that students go home a lot of times, they'll play on the software. They learn some things, they have time to do that. Whereas us as adults, we have to go home, we have to make dinner for our families, we have to take kids to, practices and pick them up from different things. And by the time we have, some time to sit down, we've got to grade, we've got to do all kinds of planning. And so, at times it's not bad to go through and let your students, if they go through and say, well, this is what I made and I'll do this in my classroom. It's like, that's cool. Put it up on the screen, show everybody else what you did. And in that way, they're kind of also helping teach each other. So I did mention I do have a good network of teachers that are teaching Fusion 360. Project Lead the Way has done a lot of that, building those connections. So I have a really great, awesome group of friends, colleagues, teachers, all the above that just are really fantastic with Fusion 360, and they're helping. Build your resources, use a variety of them. I think it's always good to have a lot of different items under your belt. So then that way that you can go through and disperse those out. Practice your skills daily. I think that's one thing that we always give advice to a lot of our teachers in the summer when they go through and are learning Fusion, is that, maybe that they will learn it in the first 2 weeks of the summer, and then they are not going to teach it until maybe the middle of August. And so our biggest thing that we tell them is, model some things that are around in your, like even in your home, model the plate that you ate your breakfast off of, model the coffee mug that you drank out of, coffee out of that morning. Continue to practice those skills, because once you kind of put it down, it doesn't always kind of come back. And it's a little bit more of a struggle to get it back going, kind of get it back up to speed. So, and last not least, be patient with yourself. I think that's probably the biggest thing that, when you go through, is that this is a software, and when you're teaching it with students, it's not going to be easy. And there's going to be times where, and I still have it too, where student raises a hand, come over, and I'm like, how in the world did you do this? And how to, as far as, when they get stuck in a problem, an issue that they can't get out of. And so I have to troubleshoot. And I think it's good for kids to see that you are exemplifying a troubleshooting process to go through and figure things out. I think it's good that they see that you're not the expert and that, hey, you're figuring things out. I think it makes them feel better. And I think it also shows them how you're kind of, imploring, your troubleshooting skills to try to go through and do. So again, just be patient with yourself. Don't think you have to be an expert. And, I've said that already. And I think you'll be surprised how much fun that you have when you start getting into teaching with this software and what the kids will have as well. So again, I noted some of these things as we were going along. Pick things that that's high school students have interest in. Toys are a great thing as well. So they have background in toys. So that's one of the best things about it, is they're very familiar with that. Food, sports, movies and TV, video games, anytime you can go through and do some of those things. they're going to go through and really get excited and motivated about their projects. And what I find in my classes, when we're doing a project they're motivated about, that bell hasn't even rung yet, and they're already going through and starting to get things out and starting to work because they're motivated to be able to see what they can create. Do you have access to fabrication tools? There's another question there. Or if, there's a possibility of having access. For me, I have some traditional kind of, I do have a little bit of a lab space where we do have some traditional manufacturing processes as far as having band saws and drill presses and drills and sanders and being able to create some stuff like that. But I also have some 3D printers as well as laser cutting and engraving machines. And then also, do you have any access to manufacturing machines such as CNC mills, routers, or lathes? Are there any things that you can go through and kind of cater to creating some projects that would be of interest? So lastly, look for resources, and learn from those resources that you think will gauge students. So this is one that I looked at one time, and this was an option I gave to a student. They wanted to design a lightsaber from Star Wars, and so I didn't have a video on that. I've never sat down and made a lightsaber in Fusion 360. Just one of the things that I haven't gotten around to, but somebody else has. And so that was the thing there, is I was able to go to that source. Jay Makes 3D on YouTube. YouTube is a fantastic resource to go through and look for items. So, I provided that resource to the student, and they made their design, and it was really cool. So, and sometimes it's good for them. They hear a lot of me in videos, so I think it's good for them to go through and maybe hear it from somebody else, or be able to see some other people's methods as compared to mine. So, however, one thing I do want to say is not everything is always driven by student interest. Sometimes we just need some things that develop skills. And sometimes I use a lot of Fusion 360 to develop teaching aids to do some of that. So like, a lot of these models you'll see used for things like multi-view drawing, section views, auxiliary views, maybe use some items for measuring tools for them to be able to measure with, or to be able to learn how to use a dial caliper. Some manufacturing processes. So like here, I got a whole block. We talk about a lot of the manufacturing processes of types of holes, especially from the side of a machinist. So could you go through and model? That's why I've got the little purple item in the bottom right hand corner. It's a whole block, and I printed it as part of also a section view, so that way they could see what that looks like. As we if we drilled those holes out and everything. But also things like design complexity and predictive analysis. Can we go through and look at, breaking some things down into simpler forms, and also predicting how something will move or function. And you'll see some examples here in a moment of some of those. But again, not everything is always driven by student interest. Sometimes it's just for utility. And these are some of the items that kind of make that happen. But what I find is these items do help with increasing their skill sets and understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, especially when we're teaching them things like, some of the concepts that I've listed. All right, so here's some of my classroom examples that I use as well. This is one that I use called candy modeling. This is an idea that actually I stole from a friend of mine. He was doing this in his classroom, and so this is one that I was going through and also doing. So I'll be the first to admit that, these are ideas at times that don't always come from me. But they're ones that are very popular with students. And I know my friend would go through, and I've told him before, I've said, I'm going to go through and put that out there to be able to show everybody. And he says, do it. He is on board, and as I am too, about sharing resources and showing what's there. So in this, students are given, they really enjoy this activity because we give them candy, and they have to measure, and then they have to sketch, orthographic views or multi-views of the candy, and then an isometric view as well. And then they have to model it. So after they've measured and taken the measurements, and they're learning a lot of the different commands. So in this case, with the Reese's cup, we're learning how to loft two items together and be able to, or two sketches, I should say, and be able to create that particular item. And then also do a section analysis. And with Fusion here, this is where I show them how to create two separate bodies within within a solid model and be able to see those properties. So a lot of really cool learning that kind of goes on there, and they enjoy it because they get to eat the candy after. This is probably one of my really popular ones, a 3D illusion lamp. So these are ones a lot of people probably seen online. This is with the use of my laser cutter, and this is actually a design that I created and I use as an example. So this project is this is our Batesville Bulldogs logo, our mascot and everything there. You know, our kind of logo that we use, and so. They go through the kids, I kind of give them some parameters as far as size constraints. And they're given in this case, it's a sheet of acrylic, and they have to create a design. And then we laser cut this out and the acrylic piece. And then I buy the LED lamp bases like from Amazon. I know some teachers will go through and cater this a little bit differently, where they'll 3D print the bases, and they'll actually do a little bit with electronics, soldering and wiring, depending upon how they would like to do this project. For me, my kids are not quite at that level yet when I'm kind of getting their interest in there. So that's why I kind of buy those bases. But this is a project where they get to decide. Nobody in the last couple years that I've been doing this project, no one has done the Batesville Bulldog logo. They always do some other type of maybe logo or design or anything like that, and that is perfectly okay. So that's what I kind of tell them. I was like, you do not have to do the bulldog. It's just an example of what I want to see, you know, when you do this. So we go through the process of modeling it. They do an assembly of it. It's a very simple assembly, but at least it goes through and kind of teaches them the concept of putting two components together and be able to use joints to be able to do so. And then they also have to do the documentation for it. So they use the drawing environment of Fusion to create that right there. Usually it's a series of 4 sheets, and I usually make them do a title sheet. We do an assembly drawing to show how that's put together, and then they do their individual part drawings or detail drawings for the acrylic piece and for the lamp base. We cover some different concepts in there, like section views and detail views, and just, you know, again, trying to make something fun. And the cool thing is they get to take that home. This is a consumable item that they take home, and they really get excited and kind of enjoy this. This is a skill building project that I do quite often. So as it was noted earlier, I'm a Purdue alumni, so I go through and you know, really enjoy this one. But this is a project that was not created by me, and used to be taught in Project Lead the Way many years ago. So I still used it, and we used to do this in Autodesk Inventor, and I just cater it to Fusion 360. So that's kind of another recommendation that I have. If you're used to another program, maybe like SolidWorks or even, you know, Inventor or any other kind of 3D modeling program, you know, just test out some of your projects, you know, that you've done, and be able to do that in Fusion. You know, if you're kind of transitioning like I did, that's the best way I learned. You know, how do I do this in Fusion? You know, I know how to do it in Inventor, but how did I do it here in Fusion? So in this project, the students are given these drawings. So you'll see this is one for the train body, and the train body has all of the dimensions kind of put on it in an isometric view. We do that on purpose because later we have them create drawings, multi-view drawings of the parts. So we want them to think about dimension placement and being able to organize some of those things. So, but we also, they make all the parts of the train. They do the assembly. We also do a motion, in this case, a motion study, and be able to see what kind of motion the train creates. And then they'll document all the design. So through Fusion. So going through the same process. So it's a skill building project. It's an advanced modeling project that they do. So usually right around maybe December, or even depending upon how the year's going, even in January, this is usually one of the ones that we're kind of getting into more advanced skills. And that's kind of what we kind of do with this project. This is one that I use in actually our second year course, because we do a lesson with statics, and we talk about materials and structures. And this is where we actually design a truss bridge. This is what I kind of call the the middle school kind of bridge project. I usually call it Bridge Project 2.0. Because the students usually do some design and then they kind of stick build and they cut all the pieces, they glue it up. In this one, it's a little bit different. This is also, I use my laser cutter for this one. And what we do is I have this kind of scenario. This is one that I kind of created on my own that, kind of talks about that, hey, we need to design a new bridge. Here's some constraints. And I use the Indiana Department of Transportation as as kind of a client in this case. They want to see some designs for this new bridge. And so we use the wood pieces are going to be cut. I usually buy the sheet of like a draft board or MDF, and usually do the thickness of about 1/8 inch members, and give some of the size constraints there as far as the span, and the bridge, as far as the how long it can be, how tall it can be, no wider. And then I also have a tester called the structural stress analyzer where we'll actually go through and test these out. So the bridges, you can see there's a model bridge. This is one that I created. And then the tester that the apparatus we have is in there in the upper right corner. These are actually 3D modeled. I created those. So I give the students the tester file. They put their bridge in there, and then they also do a static stress simulation. So which to go through and show. Now, the one kind of drawback on Fusion is they've not quite gotten the testing results for like wood materials in this simulation. So, but the one thing that I usually tell the students is we can keep this bridge set as steel, and usually we can go through and you can see the colors that kind of show up here on the model in that bottom right-hand picture, is that it's going to kind of indicate to you where your greatest amount of stress is going to be. And that's going to be a good prediction of where your bridge is going to break. And when we test the bridges, we see, okay, did it actually break in those spots where we had the greatest amount of stress? And so it was pretty cool this year when we tested the bridges. I even had some girls in the class that even made the connection of like, why did I have them do this? Which was like a proud teacher moment for me, to where they went through and they said, oh, it broke exactly where the simulation like said it would, and everything. And I was like, thank you, like kind of, I had that moment of like, now they understand why I had them go through that whole process and everything. So that way they could see that. But it's pretty neat. And then the kids really enjoy it because it's not a stick build kind of, project. It all when we laser cut the pieces, the sides come out all as one part. And it's a pretty quick assembly process. And then, we're able to go through and do that. And it's a quick one to do, in kind of, planning within your school day and stuff like that, and for, the amount of time that you might have. Usually around, usually around December, I also do an ornament design project, which is really cool. So this is kind of some of the constraints that I give, usually 4 inches by 4 inches and no thicker than 1/4 of an inch, mainly because I give the option for the students when they create these ornaments is that, that they can go through and either have them be 3D printed or they can have them laser cut. And to try to make it fair for those that want to laser cut, I try to stay to the 1/4 inch thickness because that's usually a lot of the material that works well in a laser cutter. However, the other thing too for 3D printing, the reason why I also do that is because if you have the sphere style ornaments, they can take like 3 to 4 hours to 3D print, give or take. And so to make sure I'm getting these all done by the time, we leave for our holiday break, I'll always go through and make sure that, this just make sure the timing on the prints is just a little bit quicker. And so, and I just go through and kind of say, it's kind of an even playing field for no matter which way you go about it. But usually we'll take a couple days just to go through and let them have some opportunity. So there's a few examples I usually show, and there one there on the right, the penguin was actually a student of mine that's now just graduated college. And so she's, still goes through and says she still puts it up on her tree, still hangs it up. So it's pretty nice to hear that something that, that they made still gets seen and used, in their lives. All right, so there's, again, just some of the classroom examples that, I use, and just to try to make it fun, engaging, and everything like that. Some resources that I use for Fusion 360. There's some names of some gentlemen there, like Corey Duzan, Mark McAllister, Brian Bobbitt. They've got YouTube channels out there. There's the links. I will go through and share out this presentation. So if anybody would like to have that, I'm sure that it can be shared out. So, but all the links are going to be there, and then that way you can kind of see what they're kind of do. So those guys even do some different projects than what I do at their school and at their respective schools. And so it's really awesome to see some of the things that they do, and it might give some great ideas for you and things that you want to try out. But some other kind of other websites there as well. NYC CNC, that's a company based out of New York City that does a lot of CNC work and everything, and they use Fusion 360 in their professional workplace. So I think it's a great website to show, like when kids ask, well, does this actually get used out in the industry? It does, and NYCNC is probably one of the biggest supporters. They're actually, I think, help with some of the tutorials and things like that that get put out on YouTube. So I always like to show my kids that to see that, yeah, Fusion is something that you see quite a bit. Product Design Online is another great one, as well as the official Autodesk Fusion 360 channel. The Fusion Essentials as well, so are really fantastic. Tyler Beck of Tech and Espresso is another one that he goes through. He's an individual that just goes through and provides a lot of great tutorials. And I think what I've found is, even when I watch videos from him, is the workflows and everything that he uses are makes me think a little bit differently how I'm going to do things. So I think that's one of the best parts about it, is when I watch others, I can see how I can improve myself. Lars Christensen as well. So he's a very enthusiastic individual about Fusion 360, has a lot of great videos out there for that. And Lars was as an Autodesk employee that was helping with a lot of the development of Fusion as well. As far as print media, these are some of the books and everything. This is one that I found on Amazon. So the Autodesk Fusion 360 A Power Guide. They also go through and have some great resources. So CAD Artifacts is the companion website that goes with the book. They provide a lot of tutorials. I actually, when I started teaching with Fusion, I kind of had a test class that I did. I was teaching at my local community college, and I was teaching a mechanical design course. And I asked if I could use Fusion in it from the department chair, and he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I was actually purposely was doing it as they were kind of like my guinea pigs before I had to teach it in front of my high school students. So I had about eight adults in this classroom that we were learning Fusion 360. And that book that I just mentioned there is the one that I used to kind of help me go through and construct my curriculum for that course. And so it was really awesome, and it helped me learn a lot about Fusion 360, and has a lot of great hands-on application kind of examples, but also good tutorial files and ways for you to kind of check. They'll give you some of the completed files to see if you're doing things correctly, and it helped me out quite a bit. Another one is SDC Publications. Any other Autodesk software. They've got a really good library of different textbooks that are really fantastic. So I've got a pretty good buildup of those in my library at home. So that I've bought and used to learn some things about the various softwares and use it in the classroom. So that's where a lot of the resources kind of come from. So those are some of the best ones that I've found. And even now, there's some that, even as I read through, there's some that I've found even recently that I would probably add to this list a little bit more. Just the other night, I found another one that was really awesome. So, just kind of looking around and seeing what's kind of there. It's kind of building up and getting pretty exciting to see what Fusion kind of does. This is my contact information. So I go through and always put this out anytime I do so. So Batesville High School. There is my email address. So I have one of those fun educational emails. So that goes on there. And then there is a phone number there that actually comes right to the school. So just to let you know, if you try to call during the day, or actually tomorrow's our last day of school. So if anybody still is on the East Coast and still going to school for another, 5 weeks. So not to rub it in, but tomorrow's my last day of school. So I don't know how much of, if you call that number, if I'll be available, but I'll be in and out during the summer, and so would be able to do that. Probably the best case scenario is email me, and I can go through and answer some questions you have. And then I've also got to do a shameless plug for my YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel there is, if you're looking at resources, looking for anything, there's the link to that. And you can search for like my name. You can always put PLTW in there, and I'm sure that that'll come up in the search results. And so, but there's a lot of stuff there that I kind of do. And I try to put out resources that help students and teachers, and just try to make life a little bit easier. So as they are trying to navigate whatever Autodesk software that they're trying to use. So that's a little bit about the plug. So I think that is it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Craig, for sharing those awesome student examples and resources and sharing your contact information for anyone who just wants to dive a little deeper into this content. We'll now open it up to some Q&A. So feel free to put some in the chat. I was trying to moderate. I didn't see any come through yet. So I'll give you guys a moment to type some out. All right, so could you maybe tell us more about the community college partnership you mentioned and how that goes, how you got that set up?
Yeah, for us, we have a local, in Indiana, we have Ivy Tech Community College. It was it was between our school corporation or our district that they just kind of partnered with our local Batesville campus and said that they were going to, the school kind of paid a certain amount of money to Ivy Tech, and then we had some opportunity to offer college courses to students even during our school day at no cost to the students. So I'm not really sure, I was not involved in all the, I don't know how much I can speak to the, kind of the details of how that came about, but I was here when all that started. So, and it was just something that our superintendent at the time was interested in doing. And so our kind of partnership, so we have some cases where students actually go in the middle of our school day. So we're on kind of a block schedule, and they will actually drive. Our campus is probably about, our Ivy Tech campus is maybe 3 to 5 minutes away, depending on if you get hit, by stoplights, as you go through. So, but they will actually go to the campus and they learn from Ivy Tech professors and take the courses. And then, sometimes then they come back, for whatever classes. And so for us, the ones that we had, the two ladies that I mentioned earlier that were taking the AutoCAD course, that was what they had. They had some time in their schedule, and they could go through and do what we call a dual enrollment. So all of my courses are dual credit. So all the class, so I'm an adjunct professor still with Ivy Tech as far as that goes. But that course for them was a dual enrollment course, and so they learned AutoCAD they did about an 8-week course on that one. So yeah.
Awesome.
It was one of those things that, I wish I could give more details as far as how that partnership got set up, but that was definitely somebody that, like I said, that was my superintendent at the time who was here, and he, very good man and a good visionary for our future.
Yeah, it's an awesome connection to have to establish that. Awesome. I don't see any other questions coming in, but thank you, Craig, for sharing your contact information. So if you guys think of anything else after the session, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to turn back over to Emily to give us some closing remarks.
Thanks, Emma. I think it looks like Alyssa said, I'm curious if you mandate that students do the Autodesk Fusion certification exam, or if it is an optional, Apologies if this is obvious for folks in the US, she says.
Yeah, we don't make it mandatory as far as that goes. I know in some cases, and I just know from some teachers, I think in the state of Texas and Florida, I think there's some funding that gets tied to whether the students, how they do on that certification exam. So for career and technical education courses, so I think if you're in like one of those two states, it is kind of a mandatory thing. That's what I hear from all the friends and teachers that I know that are in those two states. For us, I don't make it mandatory. I actually don't even give it to my freshmen, just because there's a lot of cases where we have a scenario. Our education foundation, we have a local education foundation called the Batesville Community Education Foundation. They actually pay for the vouchers for the certification exams. So just to kind of go through, and I kind of hinted that, our intro to engineering design course is like our first exposure to engineering. I kind of want to make sure that if we are going to do that, if I'm going to ask the Education Foundation for money, this is just kind of me being, I guess, kind of, money kind of minded, I guess, in a way, is that, the students that are really serious about doing this and that are probably going to go into engineering or maybe a related field, let's make sure that we kind of have that in place. And so because we have our program set up where they use Fusion for, several times throughout their 4 years, I kind of save it for, we do Revit in the junior year because that course uses, their junior year course uses that software. And then we're going to do Fusion in the senior year. So because we're going to use it for our computer integrated manufacturing. So I'm going to offer it to them. But even then, I don't make it mandatory for all the students in that course, because there are some that, they're like, well, yeah, these classes are fun, but I'm not going to do this as a career, and so if it's not going to be something they're particularly interested in, I'm not going to force them to take the exam. I do my best to let them know the benefits of it and what it can do for them. But, there's nothing there that says that I have to. And so, and now if that changes, then obviously, yeah, I might have to go through and retract my statement. But yeah, that's just kind of goes through and does that. So, yeah, and I just got to say, yeah, Batesville Community Education Foundation, yeah, they pay for that. So all my students get to do it for free when they do that. So I think it's awesome. So I can't say enough. If you're looking for things like that at your school, local industry partners, education foundation, if you go to them and tell them like what's going on, and that's what I did, is they were like, because actually it was a parent, and I have her son right now, the director of it. She was like, tell me about these certification exams. And when I told her, she goes, come to the board meeting. She goes, and I want you to present on this, and we're gonna pay for your vouchers for the future. And I'm going, sold. I'll come to that board meeting. And so that's what happened this year. I polled the students, said, how many of you want to take this exam? How many of you are interested? I had about 22 of them. And then I said, what exam, software would you like to take? And got a tally on that. And then all I had to do was submit a number to the Education Foundation. They wrote a check, and I had vouchers ready to go, to give that. So it's a really awesome partnership.
Yeah, definitely check out all the opportunities within your district or even your state, because these funding options make all the difference in whether you can make it happen or not. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks. As Emma said, if there's any more questions, feel free to reach out after the webinar. Just to wrap up, I'd like to say thank you to our fabulous presenter, Craig, and for all of you for joining this afternoon. Before we close, I just want to call out a few things. For our first announcement, as part of our Certified Academy Design program, we offer a boot camp. Teachers interested in getting certified can use our curriculum, practice tests, and certification exams to see what it's like before offering it to your students. If you're interested in adding the bootcamp to your Certified Academy registration, please email us at certifiedacademy@pearson.com. You can also read more about the bootcamp on our blog, which Emma will drop a link into the chat. The second announcement is Certified Academy Design is a great build-up to our annual Certified Educators Conference happening in Orlando, Florida on June 26th through 28th. If you're looking to enhance your experience, learn from additional creative educators, and connect with your fellow teachers, this is a great opportunity. And then Emma will drop that link in the chat as well, so that you can learn more and get registered. For our third announcement, next week we'll be hosting a session for all our design educators. we'll be hosting a panel discussion with professionals in engineering, video design, graphic design, and gaming design. Together, we will talk about how you can help students find their design passion and prepare for their future career goals. Emma will drop that link in the chat so you can learn more. And as always, thank you for spending this time with us, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fred.